Kate Johansson here, joined as always by Jamie Bell and Callum McInnes. That's right, you're listening to Wrestle Thoughts Podcast, or as our guest calls it today, it should be the Murder Hawk Monster Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Lance Archer. That's right, we speak about everything to do with this year's G1 Climax, in where he put some incredible performances and really stole the show, changing the perception of fans and the company alike. We talk about his new look, the NWA, the upcoming Wednesday Night Wars, his love for American football, and the upcoming XFL. Oh, is Suzuki really that scary? Find out in this podcast. And Archer talks about who he would like to see join Suzuki Gun. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Lance Archer.
Joining us today?
Yes, absolutely.
So, I really want to get straight into it. This year's G1 Climax, the reception for yourself has been absolutely amazing, knocking it out of the park night after night. What's your thoughts on that tour? How do you feel this year's G1 went for yourself?
For me, I think it went as good as possibly could be expected. You know, I mean, I really worked hard. I've said it before to friends and family. I really worked hard to change my stars. I tried to do everything I could in my power to change not only the company's perception, but the fans' perception. You know, everybody's kind of perception of who the American Psycho Lance Archer was into what he is now and what he can be for the future. You know, I've been around the business for 19 years. I've been with New Japan for 8 years. You know, I wrestled in 4 previous G1s, but that was 2011, 12, 13, and 14. And then I had basically a 5-year hiatus between the tournaments. So, you know, I really took this as an opportunity, especially since, you know, Davey Boy Smith Jr. decided to leave the company, and KES as a tag team, which I was kind of associated as only being a tag team wrestler for the last, 7 years or something like that, as an opportunity to kind of, like I said, change people's minds about who I was and to who I am and who I will be for the future. And, it started out extremely strong, having a match against Will Ospreay, which it's hard to have a bad match against Will Ospreay because he's so damn good. But, you know, I tried to continue that with every single match that I had in the G1. And from what people are saying, you know, I'm not going to toot my own horn in that sense, that I seem to have accomplished that, and I'm proud of that. And I worked very hard, like I said, change the image, change the style, change everything about what I've been doing into something new, especially for somebody who's been around the business for as long as I have and been with the company for as long as I've been.
Yeah, no, 100%. I hope it's changed the perception of the company, because the feel on Twitter certainly changed the perception of the fans. Everybody that I've spoken to is blown away by performances. Some of the moves that he was pulling out that you may have done for the first time, or you may not have done for the past couple of years or something like that. And that match with Will Ospreay, I think everybody's expectations out of the water. And then you just kept on going and going and going. And for me, with all those facts behind it, with you being a tag team wrestler, you now proving yourself in a solo, you was the MVP of the tournament for myself. I'm sure the other boys can attest to that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I very rarely tweet, Lance, but I mean, I even got on the old Twitter machine and was praising you very, very high.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, Jamie's more the technophobe.
I'm the technophobe of the show, so that was a big accomplishment, man.
Well, I'm glad I was able to bring you out of Twitter retirement.
Oh, you certainly did. You certainly. It was a pleasure watching you in the G1. It really was.
You've unleashed a monster. He don't stop.
Man. Yeah, I don't stop tweeting now. It's your fault, Lance.
Well, just keep tweeting about me, and it'll be all good.
That's fine. I can do that. No problem.
So, obviously, you mentioned Davey Boy obviously leaving to do his own thing. Was you worried at a point? Obviously, you mentioned yourself with the company's perception as a tag team wrestler and with your partner going. You've done so much work with him in New Japan, in Noah, even held the NWA World titles together. Was you worried that you wouldn't be given that opportunity to show just how much of a badass and how great you are as a solo competitor?
Yeah, you never know exactly what is going to happen in situations like this. I have a really good relationship with the company, New Japan Pro Wrestling, so I wasn't worried in the sense that I wasn't going to still be used with New Japan. I was used sparingly, especially the last couple of years and whatnot. But yeah, there's always that kind of like, what's going to happen now? What is the company going to do? Are they going to give me a real opportunity, or are they just going to, like a lot of people in the wrestling business, the fans included, whether it's the companies, the fans, whatever, they remember things from the past. They say, well, that person is this, and I can't see them any other way. I still have people who, through this time with the G1 and stuff like that, I had people going, oh man, I remember you from TNA. And I'm like, TNA was over 10 years ago, the Rock and Rave Infection, which I had a lot of fun with, was a different time in my career, a different personality, a different ability, maturity, all those things combined. And, this was a whole new time, so my worry, I guess, was, I knew what I could do. I knew what I was capable of. I knew I had to step my game up if given the opportunity. But yeah, there's always a little bit of a concern, am I going to get this chance to really show them what I can do? And, it's one of those, I had a conversation with somebody within the office, and I was like, let me succeed or fail on my own, but don't just not give me a chance. And, this is when that kind of came about, because originally, I wasn't included in the G1. When I first talked to the company about the G1 coming up, it was like, no, you're not going to be in the tournament, but we do want you a part of the Dallas show, so on and so forth. Obviously, with it being in my backyard and whatnot. But then it pretty quickly, like within a day and a half of receiving that message, I got a new message saying something changed. You now are in the G1 tournament. And as soon as I got that message, I knew what I had to do, and I knew that I was going to do everything in my power to change everybody's minds about who I was, and that included changing the image and changing the style and all that stuff. And, they'd seen me primarily, and it had been mentioned several times over the tournament that, I was known as a tag team wrestler, and KES was such a strong tag team within New Japan, especially, that's what people envisioned me as. And, there's so many amazing single stars within the company, now, and the guys that have left the company and things like that. It's a very hard moment to get a chance and to take advantage of that chance. And, like I said, as soon as I got that message, you are in the G1 tournament this year, I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to make you pay attention and want to do more, and that was my motivation the whole time.
I think everybody in the wrestling world's paying attention now. It seems like a new signing in New Japan with the intensity, and it's refreshing to see such a super heavyweight like monster in wrestling in the way you are. Even the comedy side, I think it was a match with Kenta when you were just calling him Hideo, and that just absolutely popped me. I was like, you couldn't do anything wrong. You mentioned, right, okay, I'm in the G1, I gotta change shit up. What inspired that new look? Like, what was your thought process? The red hair, looking how you were. What inspired that?
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to ask that again. I'm having trouble hearing you.
What inspired the new look? Like, you knew you was gonna be in the G1,
right?
Change it up. What inspired?
It was one of those things. Again, for 8 years with New Japan Pro Wrestling, I'd had more or less the same image. There'd been a little bit of change in the gear from here and there, but it had always been associated with KES. The hair that I had, it was basically the same hair style the entire time that I've been with New Japan. The long, no color, same hair, which was fine. I liked it. I thought it was me. It fit me well, but it was one of those things where I was like, I've got to do something kind of drastic. I got to make them go, whoa, what's happening here? And I'd only spoken to one person within the company about that change, and didn't even really give them a full description of what I was going to do. But it was, hey, this is a chance for me to change. What do you think about it? Like image, hair, so on and so forth. And they went, yeah, this is a good time to do it. And I said, okay, good. And, I kind of strategically planned it out. We had the press conference in Dallas the day before the opening of the G1 at the American Airlines Center in Dallas. And I kept the same image. You know, I had the same hair, kind of the same aura about it or whatever. And I strategically planned it to go and leave that press conference and go and change everything. And I had an idea as far as, you know, kind of a Mad Max. I like to call my mohawk a murder hawk, you know, with the red and the longer version. You know, it's not just a regular short-haired mohawk. It's still long hair, which is something that I've kind of enjoyed having, but in the mohawk fashion with the dyed hair, and then just doing different things with it throughout the G1 from the start of it, where it was as sky high as I could get it to where it was braided by the time I was working with Evil at the Budokan, you know, just having fun with it and changing that image and, you know, keeping people guessing. And when I showed up at the American Airlines Center, like I said, nobody knew I was going to do that. Everybody was just like, whoa, what did you do? Where did that come from? And, you know, with the new gear that was made for me and that whole new image. And then, you know, obviously I think it's one of those situations where if I hadn't performed the way I did, you know, with Will on that first night, maybe or maybe not, the image had been accepted as well as it was. So it's kind of it had to go together. I had to change the image and shock people that way, and I had to go out there and perform to the best of my ability and shock people that way as well. And the combination of those two things, I think, made it a success.
Cool. Well, speaking of the G1 again, Lance, I'm kind of the old school fan of the podcast, and it was nice to see you bring back the claw. What made you bring this back? Was it obviously I know you're a Texan? Was it a homage to the Von Erichs or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was one of the things. Like I worked the tour prior to the G1, which is Kazuna Road, and that was something I brought up, knowing that we were going into Dallas. Knowing that I was going to actually be a part of the G1, I was like, it would be a really cool moment if the claw in Dallas, Texas, in ode to the Von Erich family, was used in the G1 tournament. You know, in this day and age of wrestling, where so many crazy, amazing, athletic and acrobatic and dangerous things are happening. And then also you have, you know, Joey Ryan's dick flip, which is universally loved and accepted in the wrestling business. So I was like, if it's done right and done with the right enthusiasm and guys, you know, going into it the right way, if it's done right, it can be accepted and have a lot of fun with it. And the company loved it. You know, it's a very old school thing. You know, in Japan, New Japan has a very rich history in the wrestling business. Like I said, obviously the Von Erich family, Dallas, Texas, all those things combined, I think it just allowed for a very successful formula if done the right way. And I think we all knocked it out of the park.
It's funny, you mentioned there New Japan having a rich history. Obviously, again with the old school, the NWA appears to be having a bit of a rebirth. What's your thoughts on what Billy Corgan and Dave Lagana are doing?
I love it, man. It's amazing what's happening in the wrestling business right now. You know, it's one of those things, like I'm very happy and proud of everything that I've done in the business, 19 plus years in the business now. I wish I was about 10 years younger with the boom that's happening in professional wrestling right now. You know, cause I was a fan when, you know, I started becoming a fan when the whole Monday Night Wars thing was going on, WCW versus WWF. And you had to set your VCRs just to watch both of them if you had the chance to, and stuff like that, you know. And then, the business, you know, kind of died down. I was a part of WWE when there, you know, TNA was there, but it hadn't really been successful. You know, I started with TNA, and TNA was at an upswing when I was there, and then when I left and went to WWE, it was trying, but it just wasn't succeeding. And so WWE had no reason to, you know, do anything new. They were just existing on their laurels because they were the biggest, best company in the world. And now you have New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is a company that's been around for nearly 50 years, but are branching worldwide. You have AEW, which is taking America and probably the wrestling world by storm. You know, you have WWE, which is offering contracts to guys like they've almost never offered before because they have such amazing talent. And now, you know, NXT, I guess, is going to the USA Network here in the States, and it's going to be in direct competition with AEW, kind of the Wednesday Night Wars. And NXT has its own aura about it anyway. You know, it is under the WWE umbrella, but it's a whole different kind of feel for wrestling and everything that goes on there. And then you have, obviously, you still have Impact Wrestling that's still around, ROH Wrestling that has a good relationship with New Japan that's still around, and then the NWA with what Billy and Lagana and all those guys are doing with the NWA, giving it life. It's just the wrestling business all. And then we talk about the independent wrestling scene around the world being as big, as strong as it's ever been. It's probably the best time outside of the old school territory days way back in the day that it's ever been in the wrestling business. It's a whole new territory age, but it's very visible to everybody around the world because, everybody has some kind of streaming platform that anybody around the world can watch some kind of wrestling in all different kinds of ways. So it's probably the best time, and I really like what the NWA is doing as well because it just gives a different platform with a huge history behind it.
Yeah, I say it all the time. It is the best time to be a wrestling fan right now.
Oh, yeah, and a wrestler.
Yeah, absolutely,
sure. Yeah.
Speaking of the NWA, I've got to ask you, Lance. I mean,
Go for it.
Is there a chance we might see the 10 Pals of Gold in your future? Interesting.
I always say this. You never say never in professional wrestling. If there's ever anybody that's on your, you're speaking to or whatever, and they go, nope, never, absolutely not. It'll never happen. Don't listen to that because things change, money changes people's minds, situations changes people's minds, and it's one of those things that I would absolutely be honored to carry the NWA World Heavyweight title, whether they would put me in that position to take it off Nick Aldis and really scare the crap out of some people around the world as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. I don't know, that's the fun part about being in New Japan is I still get to go out and scare babies and run through crowds and stuff like that. And, that's a little bit something you can't do in the States these days because everybody's offended by everything. But
over here in the UK, Lance.
Yeah. What's that?
Everyone's offended by everything over here as well, so you're not alone.
It just seems to be the world, But it is what it is. The fans are still having a blast, and like I said, if and when the NWA came a calling and an opportunity existed and that relationship was there, I'd carry it proud and I'd be a badass champion for them.
Oh, yeah, you would. 100%. Absolutely. I mean, could you see a potential New Japan NWA working relationship in the future?
I don't know. There was already one in the past, and, New Japan has got a really strong relationship with ROH, and they're really trying to just be their own thing. They've always done well at working with other companies and, being smart about not just hiding themselves behind the New Japan banner, but using and working with ROH, CMLL, Rev Pro in the UK, doing more stuff in Australia. It's helping become a world brand. But again, you never say never. But as of right now, I don't think it's something that either side is really pushing to make happen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously New Japan are over here next weekend, 31st with Royal Quest. They're expanding over here as well.
I know. They didn't want me coming over and scaring the crap out of the UK fans, so I'm not on the Royal Quest this time.
We've got tickets as well with you, huh?
They have Suzuki, so they didn't need two people over there scaring everybody.
This is true.
He's a scary guy.
Hey, that's where I've learned from the best.
Can you tell us, is Suzuki actually that scary in person, or is he like a secret sweetheart?
I'm not going to kill his aura, man. I'll put it this way: if you're a small child, he becomes a sweetheart. If you're not a small child and he doesn't know you, you probably best just stay away.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll take that. That's fine. Okay, so I'd like to take it back to the beginning a little bit, Lance. We've spoken about what you're currently doing with the G1, but we're always interested in what made people a fan. What was the moment that you knew that this was something you wanted to do?
As far as pro wrestling?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So I played American football throughout my high school and my university years. But then when that ended, it was one of those things. I'd become a wrestling fan. Like I said, I started watching wrestling when Sting donned the Crow persona and the whole WCW, WWF Monday Night Wars was high and strong and everything like that. So I'd become a wrestling fan at that point. But my focus was American football. But when I got out of that, I still wanted to do something athletic. I was a fan of wrestling because of the combination of the athleticism and the acting that was involved in all of it. I worked in nightclubs in Austin, Texas, and the guy who owned the nightclub I worked at knew a guy that had started a wrestling school in Austin, Texas. And he made the introduction. I went out. I did a tryout. It was the most painful thing I'd ever done and almost didn't go back. but the guy actually made the school affordable for me. And as they say, the rest is history, luckily. Did about 4 years on the independent scene in Texas, and then signed on with TNA back in 2004. Was with TNA for 5 years, WWE for 2 years, and then, like I said, the last 8 plus years, with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
So would you say your dreams as a child were a bit different to most people's? Because whenever we speak to wrestlers, the dream's always been to go to WWE one day. Was that always your goal?
No, man. I as a small child, I wanted to be a marine biologist. And then, like I said, as I grew up and got a little bit older and got into athletics, American football was my dream. I really worked hard through my high school years and then my first few years in university to become the best American football player that I could be. That did not work out. It did not pan out. And, luckily I got into wrestling and it's been a good career choice. So again, as a fan, I loved what was going on in the business. But like I said, my focus was American football when I was of that athletic age.
Well, I'd like to discuss this bit as well about your early days in TNA. You mentioned you got into TNA quite quickly after your initial tryout.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big fan of the Rock and Raven faction. It was to me, it was really entertaining at the time. I'm not sure how you look back on it, but as a fan, it was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. What was it like teaming with Jimmy Rave? Did you pick up anything from him? And especially teaming with Kid Cash, what was that like as well?
Yeah, two very different wrestlers as well. I had amazing experiences with Kid Cash. I had amazing experiences. Hell, I teamed with Raw and Truth Killings for a while in TNA. And then, was with Jimmy Rave as the Rock and Raven section. And all of them have such different auras about them. Kid Cash is a very straightforward punch in the mouth type wrestler. Killings obviously is a true entertainer. And then Jimmy Rave was probably one of the smoothest, cleanest cats I'd ever seen in the wrestling ring. So it was fun getting to team with them in such different styles of professional wrestling. And in the Rock and Raven faction, for me, it was fun as well. We always felt like they could have done so much more for it. I think initially it was kind of a joke that was thrown at us, but we made it our own and had fun with it. And we're having really good matches with the Motor City Machine Guns and LAX, the original LAX, and things like that. So it went from just us being kind of a joke to, well, this is fun. The fans are having fun with it, and these guys are having really good matches. But they just still, the wrestling business, they never really pulled the trigger and made us kind of a main heel team for those babyface teams to chase. We were just always kind of the patsy for those teams and got beat up a lot. So we always felt like they could have done more with the Rock and Raven faction. But yeah, I absolutely learned a ton from all of them, from Kid Cash, because I just started with the company and on a major style wrestling company, to working with Jimmy Rave, who'd really learned how to master his craft and his ability and his smoothness, and all that was included. So I was learning stuff each and every time, and at an earlier time in my career as well. Had a lot of fun with them. Like I said, each team I think could have done so much more with, but the company chose to go in whatever direction it did, and it is what it is.
Well, speaking of teams that they could have done more with, I always thought the Gate Crashers were amazing on SmackDown.
And that's an unofficial name. We were never actually called the Gate Crashers on WWE TV.
Really? In my mind, that's what you always were, because I was on the forums back in the day, and everyone always referred to you as the Gate Crashers. And now thinking back, I'm like, I'm sure I heard it on TV, but I can't have done. But you mean you were never actually referred to as the Gate Crashers?
Nope, that was I don't know who came up with it. It was kind of like you said, it was an online thing. We were never officially called the Gate Crashers by WWE television.
I see. So that's like the Mandela effect in play there, because that's real in my mind now. But yeah, speaking of teams that they could have done more with, I thought there was an opportunity missed on an episode of SmackDown where I think it was Teddy Long told you had until the end of the episode to make a name for yourself. And it was the same episode that The Undertaker was attacked backstage by a mystery attacker. And I thought you two should have both come out and said, yeah, it was us, we did it, and taking credit for it.
Right.
And that never happened, and I don't think that story went anywhere. But the whole story of you two trying to make a name for yourselves really entertained me. And I always thought the Gate Crashers were a missed opportunity. What are your thoughts on the Gate Crashers?
Again, like you said, a missed opportunity. I think we were randomly kind of thrown together. Actually, Kurt Hawkins had come up with that idea for us when I first started with the company, when I first started with FCW, you know, he'd already been on TV multiple time tag champion and stuff like that, but had come into a time when they weren't using him much, and he chose to come down to Florida and to kind of keep his name within the WWE realm, so he wasn't out of sight, out of mind type scenario. And he knew that, you know, my stuff from TNA and whatnot, and he actually pitched the idea of he and I teaming when I first came in, and they went, no, that's not something we want to do right now. Fast forward, you know, I went on to do the ECW show prior to it shutting down and becoming the original NXT. You know, and I've been on the road for like 3 months doing nothing, and then randomly I got a message from him, and he was like, hey, remember that idea I pitched, you know, a year ago? And I went, yeah. And he goes, well, we're doing it tomorrow. I was like, oh, cool, awesome. And, you know, initially we were supposed to film a lot of backstage vignettes and things like that to help lead up to the team debuting and all this stuff. And, you know, even you read all the reports now of the show being rewritten right before the show starts and all those things like that. That was happening back then too. And like I said, we had all these plans, or not necessarily we, but the company did. And then everything just we kind of got lost in the shuffle because they had so many things that they were trying to plan and so on and so forth. And, you know, we debuted as a team not too far from when SummerSlam was, and it was after WrestleMania and all that stuff. So, you know, their focus was SummerSlam and what was going into that. And we were just kind of a team that they were kind of throwing out there. And again, they just never did anything very specific with us. At one time, I think we, on the microphone, challenged the Hart Dynasty, you know, because they were the tag champs at the time, but then that never panned out. You know, it was just one of those things that, you know, a lot of plans, but nothing ever happened.
No, is there any regrets, like any unfinished business with either of those companies, where maybe in a couple of years' time you might want to take another crack at it, whether it's Impact Wrestling, whether it's WWE, or obviously the NXT to be part of the Wednesday Night Wars?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any unfinished business? Is there any desire to go to either of those companies in the future?
Is there any desire to go to NXT, you said?
NXT, WWE, or Impact?
Any unfinished business?
Oh, you know, for me, I'm just always, again, you never say never about anything in this business these days. For me, it's always, I'm trying to say this correctly. My whole career has been proving people wrong, about changing people's perception of who I am and what I'm about. I've been lucky and blessed to be a part of major companies for the majority. You know, 15 of my 19 years have been with major companies, TNA, WWE, and now New Japan. My stuff in TNA was okay, but never what I wanted to be. My WWE time obviously was not something successful at all. So there's always that mindset of, if and when that opportunity came about, to prove them wrong as to who I was and show them who I am and make them go, man, if we'd only taken the time to figure that out ourselves, we'd have had something special. Yeah, that's always there. But I'm extremely happy with the opportunities I've received in New Japan. You know, if and when my career ends in Japan, especially with the company as it is now, and to have been there as long as I've been there, I'd be absolutely happy and absolutely proud of what I've done and where I've done it. But again, you never say never, and if given an opportunity to go and, you know, kind of put it in somebody's face that thought I wasn't worth it, and have them go, oh, damn, okay, you are worth it, you are worth it, and we should have done more with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. It was announced, I believe, last night on Twitter. You are going to be part of StarCast 3 next week.
Mm-hmm.
Are you excited about that? Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, you know, for me, those things are always fun just because there's so many guys and girls from the past to the present to the future, people that I've known for years and never get to see or talk to, people that I'll meet for the first time, and then obviously fans that, you know, like you said, through the G1 and whatnot, that, you know, are maybe opening their eyes to what I've been doing. So the whole experience, I think, is going to be a lot of fun. And then just the buzz that the StarCast is around with AEW, I think makes it a lot more fun for everybody that's involved. And then I'm actually wrestling for Warrior Wrestling on the 1st, the day after AEW's All Out in the Chicago, Illinois area, and it's a stacked card itself. So that whole weekend is going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, just getting to see old friends, meeting new fans, wrestling in Chicago, which I haven't done in many years. Just everything that's kind of involved in that whole weekend is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it should be really fun. We did All In, we flew from the UK for that, and the whole weekend was so vibrant.
Mhm.
So fans, wrestlers, they take time to speak to fans. But just to see them interact with people that you can tell you've seen for years, it was great to see. It was just pure, everybody was just having fun. Just because
Yeah.
it's wrestling, really.
Yeah. And what I'd say what I loved as well was that's the first time I've ever been a Chicago crowd. I mean, that is something special as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh, a crowd.
I think Chicago's kind of become a big epicenter for all of professional wrestling lately, and that's a cool thing, obviously AEW's going back there with All Out, what All In did for it when they started all that. I think MLW, did they just have one I think they just had their big pay-per-view, their first real pay-per-view in Chicago.
Yeah.
I think Impact's planning some stuff in Chicago soon and stuff like that. So Chicago's become kind of that new epicenter, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fan base that's in that area having such a good time at the shows and bringing such amazing energy to the shows. It's hard not to want to be there and around that as far as a wrestler is concerned, a fan is concerned, as a company is concerned. So it's just good for the business, and I think if all areas continue to grow like that, it's one of those things that is just going to help the business keep growing in such cool ways.
Yeah, I think Survivor Series is there this year as well.
Okay, see, there you go.
Yeah, I think so. There'll be a takeover before, so you're gonna get NXT Survivor Series as well in November. But it was. I had goosebumps walking in the building before I even got to my seat. You could hear the crowd, and the place was electric. And
Nice.
so, it was the first time I've been to a show in America, and my God, I was on cloud nine. I was
Awesome.
all over my body.
Very good.
So with your contract, obviously you're working for Warrior, and seen on social media you're working for Pride, you've done Future Stars of Wrestling. Does your New Japan contract, would that stop you from doing some work with AEW in the future?
You never know, man. It's one of those weird kind of moments in my career. To be honest, I'm a guy that's always been a contract per contract guy, tour by tour guy with New Japan. New Japan is now, because of the competition, they're really starting to sign guys to full longer term contracts. But historically, gaijin, foreigners coming into New Japan, they just kind of worked tour by tour. You showed up, you signed a contract. When the tour ends, your contract was done. And I've been that way with New Japan my entire time there, all 8 years. There's been hints of different things changing in the future for me and with New Japan. I don't know. But as far as contractually, no, nothing stops me. As far as kind of loyalty, that's a different scenario.
It'll be interesting to see. There's one thing that we also saw regarding some media work. Obviously, the Steve Austin, straight up Steve Austin was in the ring with Austin himself, with Sal Volcano. How was that experience? Is that something that you'd like to do more of?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've tried to do a few things here and there as far as acting is concerned, but nothing's really panned out. Plus, my schedule with wrestling has always been extremely busy, which is a good thing, a blessing. The straight up Steve Austin thing came at a time when I wasn't working on a tour with New Japan, and I got hooked up with that situation, and it was a really fun and cool experience getting to go out to LA and do something that was a little, less live pro wrestling and more entertainment, side of the business of the entertainment business. And it was really cool because that was my first time ever really meeting and speaking with Steve Austin. And, he was nothing but cool, absolutely gracious. He gave me a lot of opportunity to speak on camera. Very little of it was actually aired, because it is his show and Sal was the guest and I was just kind of there. But when we were filming, he took a lot of chances and allowed me to do a lot of speaking, in the hopes and opportunity that the USA Network would actually edit me in much a bigger capacity. So the fact that I was even there was a really cool experience. But what he was willing to try to do for me and allow me to do made it even cooler. And, actually, before I even went out to LA, again, I'd never spoken with him. I'd never met him. I didn't even know if he knew I was going to be there or not. And I randomly got a call, and my phone said, Beverly Hills, California, and I was like, who do I know in Beverly Hills? And most of the time I don't answer the phone if I don't know who it is. And so I just decided to answer the phone, and happened to have it on speakerphone, and it was like, "Is this Lance?" And I was like, "Yeah." Hey, Steve Austin. I was like, "Hey, man." It was almost like I didn't know what to say because it was whatever, and it was a cool experience. He just kind of shot the shit with me and talked for a little while, and asked me some questions, and we talked wrestling a little bit, and he asked questions about New Japan because he's like, he's so focused on Broken Skull Ranch and the things he's doing outside of wrestling that he didn't know what was going on as far as kind of outside of WWE to a degree. So we just talked for a while, and it was a really cool moment for me just getting to talk to Stone Cold Steve Austin, but just as Steve. There was nothing really wrestling about it. It was a cool moment, and it helped set up a good relationship when I did finally show up in LA and we worked together and stuff like that, So the whole scenario was really cool for me. And Sal Volcano, who's, in the Impractical Jokers here in the States and whatnot, and I think on Netflix, internationally, he's a really cool dude. He's such a big wrestling fan, and he had a blast doing the whole scenario. I was trying to scare him. I think it worked. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw the trailer about that where you do the collar and elbow, and he's just like, nah, he's a bit timid with that one. Like, he's a bit nervous.
Well, I think the combination of him being excited and me being a foot taller might have scared him a little bit.
Please tell me that you did open a couple of the cold ones with Steve Austin.
Did I? No, I didn't get to do that, but he got to, which was, I was a little jealous.
All right, so Lance, I've got to ask. It's one of the questions I've been dying to ask, actually. I'm absolutely, genuinely excited for this. What are your thoughts on the XFL? Because they announced the teams the other day, and I'm not an American football fan, but as soon as I saw those logos and the videos introducing the teams, and basically it came across as a mix of wrestling with football, and I was like, yeah, I'm on board with that. Now I've got a favourite team, and I'm excited.
St. Louis Battlehawks, what a name.
No, so are you excited for the XFL? I've just got to know.
Yeah. I am an American football fan, so I enjoy kind of all the different alternative leagues. Obviously, I'm in Texas, and we have two teams. I think it's the Dallas Renegades and the Houston Roughnecks. So there's two teams out of Texas that I can enjoy. And in Dallas, it's right here in my backyard, so I'll get to go watch a game or two. I think they're going to try to be different because the first inauguration of the XFL way back in the day, 10 plus years ago, whatever it was kind of a mix between pro wrestling and football, and it didn't work out. They lasted 1 year and then the whole league folded. I think this version is going to be more fantasy football oriented, from my understanding. They're going to try to be much more fan interactive, and I'm in America, everybody's really big on the fantasy football leagues where they're trading players and doing stuff like that. And obviously, it's teams they've created. And somehow, the XFL is going to be similar to that with its fan base, which I don't know how they're going to pull that off, but I think it's a cool concept.
Vince is investing a lot of money in it this time, isn't he? He's cashing them stocks in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, there was another spring football league that just started last year, but it folded very quickly. So everybody thought there was going to be two leagues next year, but now that one's closed, and so it's only going to be the XFL, which I think helps them. Like I said, alternative football leagues, American football leagues, have never done very well in the States. So it's going to be a hard road for them. But I think if they can create, like I said, the fantasy interaction, the fan interaction that gets the people involved much more directly than the NFL does, I think it's a formula that could possibly work. They have a long road ahead of them, but who knows? It's one of those things where people are excited to see what it does and how it does, but who knows what's going to happen.
For someone like myself who knows nothing about American football, are these alternative football leagues like the indie wrestling of football?
Yeah, to a degree. There's another league in the States that's been around for almost 30 years. It's called the Arena Football League. It's a smaller, field. It's played in like basketball-sized arenas. Like it's half the field. It's half as long, half as wide, only about 8 players, and it's a lot faster. And I love that league, but it's fallen on hard times itself. And then there's been several spring, American football leagues that have tried to come and they've gone and they've not done too well. The NFL just has such a strong hold on the American football fan base that, they've just, other than NFL, college football, university football is the only thing that rivals in comparison, and it's just on 2 different levels. Yeah, I guess you could call other alternative professional football leagues as kind of the independent scene, But the XFL has a lot more money, and so who knows what's going to happen with it.
Am I right in thinking you played quarterback?
I played quarterback, yeah.
Yeah. So how was that for you, like growing up in Texas, to play quarterback for Texas State?
That was the thing. I was on the team. I didn't play a lot, so that was kind of the reason I ended up stopping playing football. But in high school, and the high school football in Texas is a huge, huge deal. They've made several movies about it and things like that. And to be a part of high-level Texas high school football it's its own league in itself. So it was a lot of fun. Like I said, it was my dream. It was my passion. It didn't end up being what I was a part of, and professional wrestling was. And maybe professional wrestling was a little bit better because there's a lot more longevity in professional wrestling than there is American football. A lot more money in American football, but a lot more longevity in professional wrestling.
Yeah, the films that you mentioned, like Friday Night Lights, obviously that even got a TV show. That's one of my favorite films. Yeah, take it back over, Jamie.
Yeah, I'm going back to wrestling, Lance. So now Callum's at his
Okay.
moment. Obviously, recently you faced Killer Cross at Future Stars of Wrestling.
Yep.
In our opinion, probably the 2 best heavyweights there is at the minute.
Right.
Firstly, what was that like fighting or going up against Killer Cross? And also, is there anybody else you want to face in the future who you've not fought yet?
I'm not a big guy on the whole. A lot of wrestlers put out their lists of guys they want to wrestle, and I just want to compete at the top level with the top stars wherever they're at any time. Cross and I have been friends for a long time. This actually wasn't the first time we've wrestled each other, but this was the first time, at a time when he's got a lot of publicity through Impact Wrestling and whatnot, myself through New Japan and coming off the G1. So it's kind of a different aura about the whole match because of where we'd gotten to at this point in our careers. And, it was a very good, very, very good heavyweight, I don't know how else you want to say it, like kind of alternative heavyweight style fight.
Yeah.
I unfortunately, and I felt bad for the whole situation, jet lag was still kicking my butt from just getting back from Japan.
Understandable.
In like less than a week. I think I woke up at 1 a.m. and then flew straight to Las Vegas and had like a seminar that afternoon. So I was fighting some serious jet lag. So my energy for the match probably wasn't as high as it could or should have been. But it was still a very good match. It was still very strong. He's one of those guys that, like, if he ever had the opportunity, I think he would fit very well in Suzuki-gun and New Japan Pro Wrestling, just his style, his aura, everything kind of he presents. Who knows what's going to happen with him. I know he's having some issues with Impact at the moment. I don't know exactly what those are or how it's going to play out. But if, the opportunity ever presented itself and he was able to come and wrestle for New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I think he'd fit very, very well into the whole Suzuki-gun form.
I think he'd be a perfect fit. Absolutely.
When you fought the stable camp.
Yeah, you guys are scary enough, yeah.
So ideally, you're the guy that you don't want to make the list. Hello, can you still hear us? Hello, Lance? Hi, Lance, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello, Lance.
Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you now. It's kind of cut out.
That's cool, sorry.
So, yeah, you're the guy that doesn't want to make the list. You kind of want to be top of the list for everybody else. With that being said, what do you want from Wrestle Kingdom? You mentioned. Can you hear us okay?
It's cutting in and out, but go for it.
There we go. So, for the last question, what are you wanting with Wrestle Kingdom coming up with 2 nights? I know you mentioned you wanted Bushi's contract, but if that doesn't happen, I'd really like to see you go for the US title. I think you and Moxley would kill the place. What's on your goals with New Japan? After this G1, what's your goals?
For me personally, like I said, I'd like to believe the company has kind of changed their mind and perception of who I was into who I am and what I can be for them. The U.S. title, absolutely. I've heard a lot of people say that, they'd like to see me and Moxley tear it up, whether it's at Wrestle Kingdom or whenever. And he's absolutely somebody that I'd like to have a match with, especially in New Japan and for one of the titles and whatnot. For me, like I said, I want to take those next steps, whether it's the U.S. title, the Intercontinental title. And personally, whether the world believes it, the company believes it, or the fans believe it, I absolutely believe I could be one hell of a heavyweight champion, especially within New Japan, the classic monster Gaijin foreign champion is somebody that their top baby faces could try to chase and come after the title, But it's one of those things. It's a stepping stone. It's a moment. It's a changing the company's minds of who I was again into who I am. And if that next step is the U.S. title, I'm absolutely game for it. And I'm ready to prove to them, to the world, and to myself that I can be that singles champion that, again, a lot of people didn't know I could be.
Well, we all believe you certainly can, don't we?
Absolutely.
100%.
Appreciate it, guys.
I know it sounds like we're the Lance Archer official fan podcast now, but maybe
I appreciate it though.
Yeah.
That should be the new name of the podcast. There you go.
Yeah, we'll change that. I'm your official tweeter now, so as well.
The Murder Hawk Monster podcast.
There we go.
That's
Perfect.
a sick name. That's really good.
You're listening to the Lance Archer Appreciation Podcast.
There we go. Let's get it sorted.
So, Lance, thank you for your time today. To give us, we're all appreciative.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. It's been great having you on the show.
It's been a blast, man. Really appreciate it.
So,
no, I appreciate you guys having me on, giving me some time.
No, so just before you go, what appearances have you got coming up? Is there any merch? Like, we need that new Lance Archer merch to keep the momentum going. Tell people where they can find you and what you've got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, you guys, anybody can reach out to me on Twitter at Lance Hoyt, Facebook's under Lance Hoyt as well, Instagram Lance_Hoyt. Everything I keep under my real name. I think Pro Wrestling Tees does deliver internationally, so you can go to prowrestlingtees.com/Lance Hoyt. I'm trying to upload a new design as we speak, so you can go and catch some stuff there. As far as shows are concerned, like we were talking about earlier, I'll be a part of StarCast and Warrior Wrestling this next coming weekend on the 29th the 30th through the 1st of next month in Chicago, and then I have some shows in Texas, VIP Wrestling on the 6th, Lions Pride Sports on the 7th, several other things going on throughout the month, including the New Japan East Coast Tour, which will be Boston, New York, and Philadelphia, the 27th, 28th, and 29th. So a lot of stuff coming up. September's really busy. Like I said, check out my social medias. I promote myself heavily, so you'll be able to find out where I'm going to be, what I'm going to be doing, and where you can find me to come check out the American Psycho Lance Hoyt, Lance Archer.
Amazing. That's a busy month. I feel quite lazy now in comparison.
Yeah, trying.
Nah, man, we'll keep killing it. All the best. I hope you have changed that perception. You totally deserve it. And who knows, maybe in a year's time or something like that, we can reflect on it and have you on the show again.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, Lance.
All right, man. You have a good night.
You too.
Bye for now.